How's it going, fellas, and welcome to the channel where I kick back, relax, and teach you guys how to get an A+ in the Mycareer in NBA 2K26. And if you guys are struggling to get an A+ this year, this is the video for you. These are all the tips and tricks that you will need for pretty much all playmaking positions and every difficulty level possible. From rookie to Hall of Fame, these tips and tricks will help you guys a ton for winning games and getting a higher teammate grade. Let's get into it. So before you even step on the court, you will need to turn on these options in the options menu. Turn on teammate communication in the coach's options for offense and defense. Trust me, especially for defense, fellas, it will help a ton. If it tells you to go over the screen, go over the screen. If it tells you to go under the screen, go under the screen. If it tells you to switch to a certain player or take the person running to the basket on the fast break, listen to everything that the teammate communication says, because it will help a ton, just helping you play solid defense as a team. Because as a team, sometimes the defense just wigs out and just collapses for no reason and just leaks easy points, and this will help so much, just stopping these easy leaked points. The next thing I want to talk about is turn on full shot feedback for all shots for all players. If you know that a shot's going to miss, you can adapt. You can run the fast break. You can crash the boards. It helps a ton, especially finding out that the shot's going to miss so early. Like I said, you can run the fast break. You're gone, especially on lower difficulties. You are out of there and it's easier points. They do cover it a little bit in higher difficulties like Superstar and Hall of Fame, but for the most part, if you know a shot's missing, you can get into early position for a rebound or just run the fast break, and it helps so much for easy teammate grade. So the next thing I want to talk about is turn off your jump shot meter and use the stick. If you are struggling with the square button this year, use the stick. Trust me. This is a tip that pretty much everybody knows and everybody's been using, even online as well. You have to use the stick this year if you are struggling with square, especially in the Mycareer. It makes it probably 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50% easier. Just turn off the jump shot meter and use the stick, because the jump shot meter is completely useless if you're using the stick. So the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to turning on certain things in the options is turning the quarter length higher, making it a higher quarter length if you have the time. 8 minutes is the sweet spot for me. So you're looking at about a 25 to 30 minute game. You will sit on the bench for a little bit, so you don't play out the full 8 minutes every game, or 8 minutes times 4 every game, of course, for 4 quarters. I'm just waffling. I'm ranting and raving, but you know what I mean. Just play a bit of extra time, because if you do make mistakes, there's plenty of time to regain all that teammate grade. So now let's talk about on the court stuff. The biggest thing that you will have to learn when you want to cheese the AI in the Mycareer is learning how to play with screens. The most effective go-to play for me is setting screens. Whether you're setting a screen or your teammate's setting a screen, they are by far the best way to get open on harder difficulties. So let's start with the basics, how to set screens for teammates. So if you want to set screens for your point guard or any other player on the court, all you have to do is stand to the side of the player, just in front, either the left or the right hand side, and press circle or B, and the player will run around the screen. It's as easy as that, but the hard part is reacting to what animation the AI gets when hitting the screen and how he reacts. If a player gets hit hard with the screen, the other AI guarding you will pick up on lower difficulties, and it's an easy fade to the hash for a 3-pointer. They try and double team the ball handler pretty much every time. On harder difficulties, it can be a little bit iffy, and he will go to double but then come back really quickly, and because the lateral movement on higher difficulties is friggin' insane, they can pretty much cover 2 things at once. You can get away with it sometimes, but most of the time you will struggle to set screens unless the player fully commits. You will notice it. Practice makes perfect, but at the end of the day, if the player hedges the screen, they will leave the drive open or the fade open. So look to see how far that the player commits to the hedge. If he commits to the hedge, roll to the basket. On higher difficulties, you will have to do the fake. What I do is I tend to run to the basket about 3 or 4 steps and then hit the hash, hit the open hash where not as many players on that side of the court are. So if you have 3 players on the left side, run to the right. If you have 3 players on the right hand side, run to the left. Run to the side that's least populated, if that makes sense. I'm just waffling. It's all off the top of the dome. I've got nothing written down, so I could be waffling here, lads, but at the end of the day, as I said, on harder difficulties, fake the roll a few steps, so 3 or 4 steps, so you're probably about 3 or 4 steps before the free throw line, then hit the hash, and then it will be pretty much open 60 to 70% of the time. Look, these tips and tricks aren't going to be effective every single play, but it is effective enough to win games and get an A+. But don't always overcommit to the fake roll out to the hash. If the roll's open, roll. You know what I mean? Just cut straight to the basket, because it will be open sometimes. You just have to practice a little bit to get used to it. But trust me, the more and more you do this, the easier it becomes. So the next thing I want to talk about is make teammates set screens for you. Holding L1 will bring the closest big man to you for a screen. So getting the player with the highest strength or the best brick wall badge makes this the most effective. If you have a player like, say, a Rudy Gobert or Giannis, use those types of players. Players with a high brick wall. If you do want to check, all you have to do is go into the pause menu, find the box score, and hit R3 on the player that you want, and then scroll to the badge and attribute section, and you'll find out which players are best suited for screens within your team. Also, you can choose any player to set a screen by just tapping L1 and holding the icon of the player. You get taught this in the tutorial, and it works extremely well for picking out mismatches or a weak defender. Look, if you have Kyrie or somebody that you know isn't the strongest defender, make him play in the pick and roll. Force him to play defense, and it makes it easy baskets, especially on lower difficulties. The higher difficulties, it does cheese you a little bit, and pretty much 95% of players are lockdown defenders, but for lower difficulties, this works so easily and works 99 to 100% of the time, trust me. Like what I was talking about before, you need to learn what to do when each animation triggers, and that could be hard to learn, but it becomes easier the more and more you do it, especially on lower difficulties, because the players get hit with hard screens a lot. On harder difficulties, they don't get hit as much with harder screens, but there is 3 things that you need to do when you see a player get hit with a hard screen. And option 1 is if your player hits the screen hard and goes over the screen, there's an easy chance for a mid-range shot. If the floor's spaced out and there's plenty of room, throw up a mid-range shot, especially a fading shot. It's super effective, but just watch out for collapsing players on harder difficulties. That can be a little bit tricky, but for the most part, just throw up a fader. You'll see in these clips that I do it over and over and over again, and it works pretty much every single time. This is on Hall of Fame too, so it will work on every single difficulty. Option number 2, committing the big man and passing to the roller. This is super effective on lower difficulties. It can work on higher difficulties, but it can get stolen too if you are playing against a player that does have the interceptor badge. You might have to throw some alley-oops if you do have a player that can catch them, but for the most part, you just have to make sure that you commit the big man and it's an easy pass. I've got about a 70 pass accuracy, and it works a treat. As long as you commit the big man and get him close enough to you, he pretty much doesn't steal it. The only time he'll steal it is if there's a bit of a gap between you and him when you pass the ball, and he'll steal it a lot of the time on harder difficulties. But just make sure you cut the distance, and you're, say, within a couple of steps between you and him, and then the player that you're passing it to is behind that player. He will miss the ball a lot of the time. You will see from these clips that I will show you that it is pretty easy to do, even on higher difficulties. But you have been warned, it can get stolen quite a bit if you don't do it properly. And option number 3, if the lane is open, drive it strong. If you do want to risk it and go for a right stick down dunk, you can go for that, but just go for a timed easy dunk by just holding the right stick up. That gives you a simple basic dunk. I know it's settling and you don't get the flashy dunk, but at the end of the day, both dunks are worth 2 points, and I can't count the amount of times that I've gone for a flashy dunk, especially on higher difficulties, and I just can't make the dunk because I just go for this big crazy 360 dunk, and the AI contest is just brutal on Hall of Fame. So going for the simple dunk is my answer to getting an easy drive most of the time anyway. So when a player goes under the screen, which is the opposite, that's when you just let it fly. So when a player goes around the screen that is closer to the basket than to the player with the ball, just let it fly. You're going to be open a lot of the time, especially on lower difficulties. This is a cheat code. If the player goes under the screen, just let the ball fly. You can even shoot a moving shot if you're sprinting as well, but a lot of the time you just walk around the screen on lower difficulties and just see what animation that they get. If they go over, sprint to the basket. If they go under, let it fly. It's that simple on lower difficulties. Setting screens is just so cheesy when it comes to lower difficulties. The AI has no idea. So the biggest thing that you'll have to learn is what is a soft screen and what is a hard screen. This will affect the animation of the defender so much, and it gets harder and harder to determine which is which on higher difficulties. A lot of the time on harder difficulties, you will get soft screens a lot of the time. This is basically where the defender doesn't get affected at all, and he just gets pretty much straight back into position, and you can't get free at all. So what you have to do is just restart, just set screen after screen. Just run to the hash, set another screen. If that doesn't work, run to the other side, set another screen, set another screen. You have 24 seconds in the shot clock. Don't be scared to use every bit of those 24 seconds. And if you do get stuck with the ball in the last 3, 4, 5 seconds, just pass it to somebody else. They don't lose teammate grade, and you don't have to deal with losing teammate grade for a shot clock violation, but you do have to try and use all the 24 seconds if you don't get open on harder difficulties. Trust me when I say this, you will need to use all of the 24 seconds. Sometimes it will take to the last second to get some sort of open shot or roll to the basket. So make sure you reset and try again. So the next thing I want to talk about is the hard screen. This screen will take a defender out of the play for a small amount of time, giving you a chance to attack. If he gets taken out from a hard screen while going under, shoot the ball. Like I said earlier, it all depends on whether he gets taken out of the play. It will take a little bit of practice to learn what is a soft screen and what is a hard screen, and which animation takes a player out for a certain amount of time. Like I said, you'll see the player get knocked off his feet for a little bit, and when that happens, attack. Either go for the open shot or the open drive. It's your only chance to actually attack on higher difficulties. When it's a higher difficulty, this will make it so much easier to attack the basket or attack the open shot. But like I said, the more you do it, the more you'll learn. The next thing I want to talk about is corner screens into the mid-range. If you ever get stuck in the corner, make someone set a screen, and it works surprisingly well. It's surprisingly effective how well corner screens work. So when you're in the corner, say after you've ran the fast break, but the player covers it and you're stuck in the corner, get a big man to come over, set the screen, and it's a moving mid-range every single time. You'll see in these clips, it works very effectively from this position. It's open a lot of the time, even on harder difficulties. So if you ever find yourself stuck in the corner, call for a screen. Like I talked about earlier, running the fast break after looking at the shot feedback helps a lot. If you notice that the shot is missing, run. When the opposition misses a shot, it's time to attack. So the simple thing to do is just attack the basket. But on higher difficulties, it gets covered a lot. So what you want to do is you want to run to the basket, and then when you get to about the 3-point line, maybe even the free throw line, hit the 3-point line or the corner or the hash. One of the three. It works so well. They do close out some of the time, but a lot of the time, especially with stick shooting, you will be open. And as I said, on Superstar or lower, this works pretty much every time. Pretty much 100, maybe not 100%, but 80, 90 to 100%. On Hall of Fame, you do have to look to see how close the player is. Just use your brain a little bit, but a lot of the time, it's super effective even on Hall of Fame if you are a decent shooter. So the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to offense is be smart with the ball and use all the 24 seconds. I talked about it a little bit before, but I've got to preach this. Use all of the 24 seconds. You don't have to score every time you set a screen. You don't have to score every play. If you are unsure, if you don't think it's open, if you think that the ball might get stolen or you might miss the shot, don't be scared to reset and try again. Don't be scared to pass it to somebody else to have a shot of the ball. You know what I mean? You don't always have to be the guy scoring the basket every single time. This is a teammate grade killer. But if you run out of time with 2 or 3 seconds left, like I said, just pass it to somebody else and let them worry about the shot clock violation. Oh, one last thing when it comes to offense is step backs are so OP when they are turned into ankle breakers. When a player has their back turned to you, when you have beaten them with some sort of movement and you have their back towards you, so basically their back is at you and they are facing the basket, do a step back. I use the Vince Carter step back or the Devin Booker step back. This will create an ankle breaker so much. So many times I've created so much space just using a simple step back. By holding R2 and flicking the right stick back, and it will create so many ankle breakers and so many opportunities for an easy 3. So the last thing I want to talk about is don't forget about defense. Shot feedback helps you on defense too. If you aren't guarding the perimeter and have some rebound attributes, go for the rebound. Getting 5 rebounds a game if you're in the corner or the paint helps a ton for good teammate grade. It will boost up probably a B+ to an A-, maybe even an A, just from a few simple rebounds. So if you see that the shot's going to miss, get into position early, box out, get the rebound, and run the fast break. And that brings me to my next thing. Don't forget to box out. If you are unsure on how to box out, all you have to do is get in between the position of the opposition and the basket and just hold L2. This helps a ton of getting rebounds because it pretty much blocks out the big man. So they can't get rebounds, and if they do try, it's a simple foul. It's that easy to get rebounds in the Mycareer by just simply boxing out and letting the ball fall straight to you. So the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to defense is watch out for off-ball screens. Off-ball screens are my kryptonite. I hate them so much, and the AI does so many of them. You can use pick dodger or just use your speed of your character, but a lot of the time you're going to get caught up in those screens. And if you don't have high enough pick dodger or the speed, you're going to have to jump for a contest. Jump, jump, jump. Hands up is simply not enough, especially on high difficulties. You need to jump. Don't use L2 this year. That's my biggest bit of advice for defense. I always used L2 to defend, but this year it's slow and it just doesn't work, in my opinion. L2 will put you into a defensive stance, but this year, if you're close enough to the ball handler, you will automatically go into this stance and you don't lose speed, you get better bump animations, and it's just easier to play defense. You don't, as I said, you don't lose your speed, you get better bumps, so it's a no-brainer. Just don't hold L2 this year at all when playing defense, especially in the Mycareer. But anyway, guys, I've talked and raved long enough. I know I waffled, it got a bit technical here and there. If you did make it to the end of the video, I really do appreciate it. But trust me, learn how to play around screens. It will help you a ton getting teammate grade when it comes to the Mycareer. And if you have any questions when it comes to getting teammate grade, leave it all in the comments below. How to do something, what works the best, leave it all in the comments below. But anyway, guys, I've talked and raved long enough. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch us later.